Welcome to Crossover Commander, where we show you how to cross over your favorite pop culture characters through the blind eternities so they can command your deck with style. If you really enjoy what you see here today and would like to see this channel grow, check us out on TikTok and Patreon. The links will be in the description section down below. It looks like this portal is stabilizing, so let's get on with this show. Touted as the world's greatest archer, Hawkeye has served on teams such as the Avengers to keep Earth safe from all sorts of threats, from the street level all the way up to the cosmic. It was during one of these cosmic threats where him and his strike team wound up finding a portal, and hoping to gain an upper hand on Thanos, they went through it and found themselves somewhere new. Landing in this new reality, Hawkeye found himself being recognized as a man named Kelsian the Plague, and he found himself stronger and faster and more accurate than he had ever been. He can be cast for a red, a white, and a black. He has vigilance and haste, and gets +1/+1 for each experience counter that you have, and can tap to deal 1 damage to target creature you don't control. When that creature dies this turn, you get an experience counter. The power level and rule 0 for this deck, Hawkeye using his quiver of tricks can win as early as turn 10 and regularly by turn 13-14. Hawkeye's strategy is to focus on threat assessment, well-aimed removal, and aggressive combat with his strike team. And in order to claim victory, once Hawkeye has dealt with the worst threats on the field, he can work on ending his opponents with precision strikes. This is the perfect time to remind you that this is a crossover themed build. With that being said, crucial cards for the theme will be added regardless of price. Cards that are not essential to fit the theme will be made as budget friendly as possible. The one odd drawback of this new realm that Hawkeye found himself in is that there's a intensive need for mana. So he works through this with Command Tower, Rogue's Passage, Inventor's Fair, Myriad Landscape, Karn's Bastion, 10 Swamps, Mikoru Center of the Sea, 11 Plains, an Arcane Lighthouse, and 7 Mountains. In an effort to stay ahead of his enemies, Hawkeye also runs Soul Ring, Rakdos Signet, Orzhov Signet, Boros Signet, Thought Vessel, Sword of the Animist, Cloud Key, and Endless Horizons. Hawkeye, having lots of experience, knows that the best defense and offense is a well-stocked bag of tricks. And to that end, he uses Skull Clamp, Infiltration Lens, and Mask of Memories to draw a lot of cards. And then he uses Open the Armory, as well as Plea for Guidance, to search for key pieces of his strategy. He also utilizes Underworld Connection, Outpost Siege, Avarice Amulet, and Tamio's Journal in order to keep his quiver full. Now that Hawkeye's quiver is full, it's time to look at his strike team. We've got Lucky the Pizza Dog. For 1 white, he's a Hound Defender, and for 1 you can sacrifice him to target creature you control, gain indestructible until end of turn. And then we have Pierce Steel Paladin for 2 white. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card, and it has Metalcraft. Equipments you control have equip 0 as long as you control 3 or more artifacts. And then we have SRAM Senior Edificer for 1 and a white. Whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle spell, you draw a card. And then we have Silver Sable for 2 and a white. She has First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. And aura and equipment spells you cast cost 1 less. Then we have the Foundry Inspector for 3 generic mana. It says artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And then we have Spider-Man swinging in to help the team. He has Flying and Haste for 1, a red and a white. And if a spell would deal damage to you or another permanent you control, prevent that damage. And then we have Kate Bishop for 2 and 2 white. She has First Strike, and can tap to deal 2 damage to each attacking or blocking creature target player controls. And then we have Black Widow. For 3 and 2 black, she has Menace, and when she enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. And whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Black Widow gets another -1/-1 until end of turn. And then we've got Mockingbird, Hawkeye's wife. For 3, a red, a white, and a black, she has Vigilance and Menace, and whenever an equipped creature you control attacks, you draw a card and lose a life, and equipment you control have Equip Knight 0. Hawkeye's strike team can work together to pull off some crazy maneuvers like Vandal Blast. For 1 red, you can destroy target artifact you don't control, or for 4 in a red, you can destroy all artifacts you don't control. And then for 2 red, you can play Smoke, and players can't untap more than 1 creature during their untap step. And then Crackdown for 2 and a white. Non-white creatures with power 3 or greater don't untap during their controller's untap step. And then for 3, a red and a white, you can summon some cavalry with Assemble the Legion. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a muster counter on Assemble the Legion, then put a 1/1 red and white soldier creature token with haste onto the battlefield for each muster counter on Assemble the Legion. Hawkeye's strategic planning gives his strike team access to Swiftfoot Boots for 2 generic mana, and equips for 1 equipped creature has Hexproof and Haste, and Lightning Greaves for 2 generic mana, equipped creature has Haste and Shroud and equips for 0, and then the Mask of Avacyn for 2 generic mana has equipped creature gets +1/+2 and has Hexproof and equips for 3, and then Whispersilk Cloak for 3 generic mana gives a creature Unblockable and Shroud and equips for 2. And Reconnaissance for 1 white has 0, remove target attacking creature you control from combat and untap it. And then Finhorn Bow for 2 generic mana has 3 and tap, target creature gains first strike until end of turn. And then Hope Against Hope for 2 and a white, enchanted creature has +1/+1 for each creature you control, and as long as it's a human it has first strike. And then Battle Mastery for 2 and a white, enchanted creature has double strike. It's in the thick of battle that Hawkeye begins to truly shine. For 2 generic mana, you have Mage Rightstone, and for 1 generic and a tap, you can untap target creature that has an activated ability. And then for 2 generic mana and an equip cost of 1, whenever equipped creature attacks with the Heart Piercer Bow, deals 1 damage to target creature defending player controls. And then Battle Mage's Bracers for 2 and a red, equipped creature has haste, and whenever an ability of equipped creature is activated, if it isn't a mana ability, you may pay 1. If you do, copy that ability, and you may choose new targets for the copy. And then 1,000 Year Elixir for 3 generic has you may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste, and for 1 generic you can tap to untap target creature. These cards will allow Hawkeye to hit multiple opponents with his strike. Now Hawkeye unleashes his trick arrows. We have the Reaper's Talisman for 1 black. Whenever equipped creature attacks, it gains Death Touch until end of turn. And whenever equipped creature attacks alone, defending player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And then we have the Gorgon's Head for 1 generic mana. Equipped creature has Death Touch. And then we have the Basilisk Collar for 1 generic mana. Equipped creature has Death Touch and Lifelink. And then we have the Gorgon Flail for 2 generic mana. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and Death Touch. And these all have an equipped cost of 2. And then his arrow, Fist of the Demigod, gives Hawkeye +2/+2 and Wither and First Strike for 1 and a Rakdos. And then Everlasting Torment for 2 and a Rakdos. Players can't gain life, and damage can't be prevented, and all damage is dealt as though its source had Wither. And then Retreat to Hagra for 2 and a black has Landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, choose 1. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains Death Touch until end of turn, or each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. And then Deadly Wanderings for 3 and 2 black. As long as Hawkeye is alone and there's no other creatures on your side of the field, he gets +2/+0 and gains Death Touch and Lifelink. To make sure his team comes out on top, Hawkeye has saved his best tricks for last. Working together with Mockingbird, his wife, as well as either Maskwood Nexus or Conspiracy for 4 or 5 mana respectively, he can equip all of the equipment for free by making himself a knight. Hawkeye can use his magnetic web arrow as well as his grappling hook arrow to force creatures on our opponent's side of the field to block, and then with his swinging arrow, the Kusarigama, he can deal any damage that he deals to the blocking creature to all of their team. And if your opponents get sick of this combo and try to remove your arrows, you've got Second Sunrise for 1 and 2 white to return all artifacts to play. Hawkeye can also utilize the Rings of Brighthearth Basalt Monolith combo to generate infinite mana. The way this works is you play Basalt Monolith, and then tap it for 3 mana, and then with Rings of Brighthearth on the board, you can then, with 2 extra mana, choose to untap the Basalt Monolith and copy that trigger, and then continually do that in an infinite loop to create infinite mana. You can dump this infinite mana into a card like Staff of Domination to either gain infinite life, to untap Hawkeye infinitely so you can deal with the entire board with his ability, or you can draw your entire deck, or if you don't have access to Staff of Domination, you can play Sword of the Perons and equip it to Hawkeye and shoot all of your opponent's creatures with a infinite untap trigger. And Hawkeye has saved his best trick for last. Unsheathing his Ronin's sword. For 1 black mana, the Vorpal Sword gives an equipped creature +2/+0 in Death Touch, and for 5 and 3 black until end of turn, Vorpal Sword gains whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. And then Thornbite Staff for 2 generic mana, and then an equip cost of 4, says this creature deals 1 damage to target creature or player, and whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap this creature. Now this combos with any of the death-touching artifacts in this deck to mow down the enemy's creatures in mass. And then with a card like Quietus Spike for 3 generic mana, it'll give Hawkeye Death Touch, and whenever he attacks and deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half of his or her life rounded up. And comboed with a card like True Conviction for 3 and then 3 white, all your creatures have double strike and lifelink, so you will straight up end your opponents right there. This is the way that Hawkeye will end the game. Having gone through Hawkeye's full quiver, we can check out the average price for this deck at time of release. It's $183 to $220, depending on where you purchase it from. As always, it can be cheaper if you're willing to play with heavily played or damaged cards. And then the stats for this deck, we've got 11 ramp cards, 3 tutors, 13 forms of card draw, 15 forms of interaction, 3 board wipes, and 35 lands. Remember, this is a crossover themed build. With that being said, crucial cards for the theme were added regardless of price. Cards that were not essential to fit the theme were made as budget-friendly as possible. If you want to optimize this list, feel free to leave your upgrades in the comments section below. Most importantly, this deck is meant to be a new and engaging way to spice up your Commander games, so fun is the top priority. Thank you for watching this crossover deck tech. If you liked this video, check out our other content on YouTube or TikTok. Your viewership means the multiverse to the crossover commander, and if you would like to become a part of this growing Terran reality, you can like, share, and subscribe. If you would like to vote on the next pop culture character to crossover, check out our Patreon where we have some awesome perks. If you have any ideas or complaints, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. Now that this portal's closing, see you next time.